Imagine a city with a scar running through its very heart, a deep concrete gash that did not heal. This was Berlin for 28 long years. The Berlin Wall was not just a structure of concrete and barbed wire. It was a line drawn through families, through friendships, through the simple act of visiting a neighbor. It was a physical manifestation of a divided world, a constant gray reminder of separation. Why was this scar carved into Berlin? To understand the wall, we must go back to the end of the Second World War. Germany was defeated and divided. The country was split between the victorious powers: United States, Great Britain, France, Soviet Union. Berlin, located deep inside the Soviet zone, was also divided, an island of Western democracy inside a sea of Eastern communism. The city became the front line of the Cold War. A stark contrast grew between the two sides. West Germany experienced an economic miracle. The gap provoked a crisis for East Germany. Its people were leaving. Between 1949 and 1961, nearly 3 million fled to the West, mostly via Berlin. They sought freedom, opportunity, a better life. The exodus was a disaster for the GDR, losing doctors, engineers, skilled workers, its future. In the dead of night, August 13, 1961, the border was sealed. Soldiers rolled out coils of barbed wire, streets were torn up, families woke to find themselves trapped. The wire fence became a concrete wall, officially called the Anti-Fascist Protection Rampart. But the truth was clear. The wall was not built to keep people out. It was built to keep its own citizens in. Life on either side of the wall unfolded in two parallel universes. In West Berlin, life was vibrant, chaotic, and free. It was an island of capitalism and democracy, surrounded and isolated. The streets were filled with the latest cars. The shops overflowed with goods from around the world. The air buzzed with the sounds of rock music and political debate. In East Berlin, life was painted in shades of gray. The city was quieter, the buildings often still showing scars from the war. The economy was planned. Shortages were part of daily life. People waited in long lines for basics: bananas, good coffee. The cars were mostly Trabants, sputtering and smoking. But life was not all bleakness. There was a strong sense of community, born from shared hardship. People found joy in small things. A family picnic, a gathering in a private garden away from listening ears, the secret pleasure of watching a Western television show. The constant surveillance by the Stasi bred a culture of silence and mistrust. You had to be careful what you said, even to your closest friends. For those with family on the other side, the pain was sharp and personal. A wall had cut through their hearts. Letters were censored and phone calls were monitored. Visits were rare and difficult to arrange, especially for East Germans trying to go west. People would stand on viewing platforms, trying to catch a glimpse of loved ones across the death strip. These were moments of profound sadness, a testament to the human cost of political ideology. By the late 1980s, the foundations of the Eastern Bloc were beginning to crack. The change was carried on the wind, a whisper of hope that grew louder with each passing day. In the Soviet Union, a new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, had introduced policies of glasnost, or openness, and perestroika, or restructuring. He made it clear that the Soviet Union would no longer use military force to prop up the communist regimes in Eastern Europe. It was like removing the keystone from an arch. The satellite states were now on their own, and their people sensed the opportunity. These whispers of change found fertile ground in East Germany. For years, small groups of activists, often sheltered by the Protestant Church, had been pushing for reform. They met in secret to discuss human rights, environmental issues, and peace. In Leipzig, a city south of Berlin, weekly Monday demonstrations began at the St. Nicholas Church. At first, only a handful of brave souls attended, but their numbers grew week by week. They marched through the streets chanting, "Wir sind das Volk," "We are the people." This was a powerful, defiant cry. It was a direct challenge to a government that claimed to represent the people but had never asked for their consent. In the summer of 1989, a crack appeared in the Iron Curtain. Hungary, another Eastern Bloc country, opened its border with Austria. This created an escape route. Thousands of East Germans flocked to Hungary, officially on vacation, and then crossed to freedom in the West. The Monday demonstrations in Leipzig swelled from hundreds to thousands, and then to hundreds of thousands. The chants changed from "We are the people" to "Wir sind ein Volk," "We are one people." November 9, 1989, started as just another gray day in a divided Berlin. No one woke up thinking it would be the day history was made. The East German government was in chaos, trying to calm the protests by easing travel restrictions. A mid-level party official named Günter Schabowski was tasked with announcing these new rules at a press conference. The conference was long and honestly pretty boring. But near the end, a journalist asked a critical question. When would the new travel rules take effect? Schabowski, who had not been properly briefed, shuffled through his papers. He looked confused. Then he uttered the words that would change the world. As far as I know, effective immediately, without delay. The news spread like wildfire. It was broadcast on West German television, which most East Berliners watched. People were in disbelief. Could it be true? After decades of being trapped, could they simply walk through the wall? Hesitantly at first, then with growing excitement, people began to leave their homes. They walked towards the heavily guarded checkpoints along the wall. Small crowds formed. They grew into larger crowds and then into a massive, unstoppable river of humanity. The people stood before the guards, waiting, hoping, demanding. The air was thick with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The border guards were completely bewildered. They had no orders. Their commanders were silent. They faced a choice: open fire on their own people or open the gates. At the Bornholmer Strasse checkpoint, the pressure became unbearable. The commanding officer, Harold Jaeger, made a historic decision. Without orders from above, he told his men to open the barrier. And just like that, the wall was breached. A flood of people streamed through into the arms of waiting West Berliners. That night, Berlin experienced a citywide party of pure, unadulterated joy. Strangers hugged each other, crying, laughing. People climbed onto the wall, dancing, singing, chipping away at the hated concrete with hammers and chisels. East German Trabant cars, sputtering, smoking, crossed into the West for the first time, greeted by cheering crowds. It was a moment of surreal, overwhelming emotion. The fear that had defined their lives for so long had vanished in an instant, replaced by a feeling of boundless freedom and disbelief. The scar on the city's heart had finally begun to heal. The days and weeks after November 9, 1989, were a blur of emotion and change. The fall of the wall was not just a political event, it was a deeply human one. It was the sound of families reuniting after decades of separation. It was the sight of East Berliners exploring the glittering department stores of the West for the first time, their eyes wide with wonder. The physical wall began to come down, piece by piece, sold as souvenirs or ground into dust. The fall of the Berlin Wall sent shockwaves across the globe. It was the most powerful symbol of the Cold War's end. The Iron Curtain, which had divided Europe for more than 40 years, was torn apart. One by one, the communist regimes of Eastern Europe crumbled, replaced by fledgling democracies. The event signaled a victory for peaceful protest, a testament to the power of ordinary people to change the course of history without firing a shot. For Germany, the journey was just beginning. The fall of the wall led, less than a year later, to the reunification of the country on October 3, 1990. This was a moment of immense national pride, but it also brought enormous challenges. Merging two vastly different economic and social systems was a monumental task. The Mauer im Kopf, the wall in the head, persisted for years. The process of becoming one nation again was long, difficult, and expensive, and its echoes can still be felt today. Yet the legacy of the wall's fall is overwhelmingly one of hope. Today, Berlin is a vibrant, united city once more. The path of the former wall is marked by a line of cobblestones, a subtle scar to remember the division. It stands as a powerful reminder that no wall is permanent, and no system of oppression can last forever. It teaches us that courage and the human desire for freedom are forces that can overcome concrete and barbed wire. It is a memorial, not just to the pain of the past, but to the incredible joy of that November night when a city were reborn, a country were reborn, and a world were reborn.